You can check out Talking SEC on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you're on Apple Podcasts, please follow, rate, and review. It means a lot to the show if you do that. If you leave a review, I will read it on a future edition of the show. You can also watch the show over on YouTube, either at the Phillip Jordan YouTube channel. Just hit the subscribe button, hit the bell for all notifications, and leave a comment on a video. I'll read that on a future edition of the show. Also over on the Talking SEC YouTube channel as well. You can
Welcome to Talkin' SEC. Writer, photographer, and producer Phillip Jordan discusses the latest news and breaks down the biggest games with the best analysts around. Now, from Southeast Alabama, a state that knows its sports, here is Phillip Jordan.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into Talking SEC. Sorry, forgot to unmute the mic there. But welcome into the Monday edition of Talking SEC. I am your host, Phillip Jordan from Last One College Football and 96.9 The Legend in Dothan, Alabama, where I'm in-studio host and producer, Dothan Woods Football. Going live today on this episode of the show, so a little snafus there in the open. But anyways, we're going to go over all the Week 8 games in the SEC. Look at a certain SEC team got fined, another fine getting dropped down on an SEC team this week. And also, we will look at the latest AP polls here on a Monday. Mondays are just me going solo. Of course, on Tuesdays, we coach Max Howell, some X's and O's. We'll do that on Tuesday. Mystery guest Wednesday. And then, of course, on Thursdays, we'll preview the weekend. And I will be joined by Matt Lowe doing that. So let's jump things off. Let's go through these SEC games from this past weekend. We're going to start off. We're going to go in order that they got it played. That's just how we're going to do it here on the show today. Tennessee takes care of UT Martin. Look, you go into this game, and me and Matt talked about this on last week's preview podcast, that obviously Tennessee was going to win this game. It'd be one of the most monumental upsets of all time if UT Martin had won this game. But what you wanted to see out of Tennessee going into this game with UT Martin was to see how they look. Have they moved on? Have they turned the page from that win against Alabama? I mean, a program-changing, a conference-changing victory they had over Alabama the previous week. So how would they look going into this one? They win this one 65-24 to go to 7-0 on the year. Tennessee just took care of business. 696 total yards. Hendon Hooker didn't play any in the second half. He was 18-24, 276, 3 touchdowns. They had 52 points at halftime, which is the points normally they had the week before against the whole game against Alabama. Jalen White, another big game for him. 7 receptions, 174 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Now, there was a stat that bothers me a little. Tennessee did have 13 penalties in the game for a total of 109 yards. Tennessee Martin, a quarterback, Dresser Wynn, did throw for over 301 yards. Tennessee is not good against the pass. They did give up some points there. He gave up some yards there. And early on, UT Martin did move the ball a little bit. But 11 o'clock kickoff, you're coming off the Alabama game, so you kind of do expect to be, I wouldn't say overly sluggish, but you kind of understand if Tennessee still kind of had last week on their mind. So, look, going forward, look, they do have Kentucky coming up next. Kentucky's coming off an off week, and Kentucky has a quarterback, Will Levis. And I'm very intrigued by that game. But look, Tennessee come in, they did what they're supposed to. They win 65-24 to take care of business to open up today in the SEC to get to 7-0. So the next game up, that was only 11 o'clock game on Saturday. And I'm just going to be honest with a lot of y'all. I had that game on one of my TVs. I have 2 TVs set up. And then I usually have another computer or an iPad. So I'm usually watching about 3 games at once. So, yes, this is SEC podcast. Do this 4 days a week. But I'll try to watch a little bit of everybody in college football because I got to know the enemy of these teams going forward, especially when we get close to bowls and playoffs and stuff like that. But I did not have all my focus the entire time on the Tennessee UT Martin game. It was on one of the screens, but I was watching more Clemson and Syracuse, and that one I had that one on one of the other TVs. So luckily had that, but we'll have some better 11 o'clock games. We're only have one 11 o'clock game this week too, with Auburn and Arkansas. But anyways, moving forward, I like the 2:30 game over on CBS. And as I always do, you never know when you're going to have a new audience, new people listen to the show. But I will say, I'll tell you guys, I do Central Times just because I live in Alabama. So there you go. Number 7, Ole Miss fell 45-20 to LSU. Now, if you listen to or watch the show on Friday, me and Matt both picked LSU in this one. And early last week, I would have went with Ole Miss, but as the week went on, I thought about it. I went with LSU here. Look, and going early on, Ole Miss, you're up 17-3. Early in the second quarter, you're outgaining LSU 20-80 on that end. I was really thinking, okay, this is not looking good. LSU cannot stop Ole Miss. Is this going to look like what the Tennessee game looked like? But then, second quarter on, LSU outscores them 42-3. Jaden Daniels, I mean, these last 2 weeks, he has really punched up. And I know a lot of people will probably look at it and say, okay, but Florida and Ole Miss don't have good defense. I think Ole Miss has now been exposed. They do not have a good defense. They struggled in the first half against Vanderbilt. I saw what Auburn did against them, 301 yards rushing in that one. And now LSU puts up over 500 total yards of offense in this game. Jaden Daniels was 21 of 28 for 248 yards, 2 touchdowns, but he also ran for 121 and 3 more scores. He has 11 touchdowns total over the last 2 weeks. Jaden Daniels is really playing well. He's taking that next step because a couple weeks ago, coming off the Tennessee loss, 40-13, it was okay. This LSU team is probably like a 7-5 team. They're not a contender in the SEC West. Well, now they look to be that. They share top spot with Alabama right now on that side of the conference. When you look at it from there, and then Jaden Daniels, like I said, he is playing really, really well defensively. And I'm going to say this too about this game: LSU dominated Ole Miss on the line of scrimmage, both sides of the ball. They ran the ball really, really well. I mean, yeah, Jaden Daniels had 121. They had 252 yards, total yards rushing, 35 first down. LSU was the more physical team in this game. Ole Miss didn't have their number rush yards, which I know Zach Evans didn't play in this game. So they only had Judkins in there running in the running game. But they also, when they got a lead and they were able to slow down the Ole Miss running game, Ole Miss had less than 120 yards rushing, 117, somewhere in that range. I'm sure if I'm wrong, somebody on the internet is going to correct me. I didn't write that stat down, but it was not the number that we're used to seeing the best rushing team in the SEC do. They slowed that down, and then they forced the game into Jackson Dart's hands, and he did not play great in this one. Dart didn't. He was 19-34 for 284. He did throw some interception in the end zone. It was a great one-handed interception too as well for LSU. But LSU put the game on his shoulders, and it didn't work. It didn't work for Ole Miss. So going for it, they got to get running game. But I'll say this too about LSU. They also got a good performance, I think, out of Josh Williams as well. He had a solid performance here for LSU too as well. Harold Perkins all over the place, a true freshman on the defense side for LSU. 1 sack, 2 quarterback hurries. This was the 3rd time this year that LSU has come back and won a game after trailing for 13 points in the game. Of course, they did it against Auburn. Auburn did it up 17-0. They did it in this game. So Brian Kelly's got LSU going in good direction. They're 6-2. They're 4-1 in the conference. They go into their off week. They play Alabama on the 5th of November. That's going to be a big Saturday. And I feel like, okay, so we're kind of jumping ahead here. Tennessee and Georgia play that day. And let's just say Tennessee does beat Kentucky. They get through this week and they go on to that one. You got to imagine Tennessee and Georgia. If you've got the number 1 team versus the number 3 team, that's going to be the 2:30 CBS game. So who's going to be playing in prime time on ESPN? That's going to probably be more than likely, I'm pretty sure, they would put Alabama at LSU. So Baton Rouge at night. LSU's playing good. The defense is playing better. They've been giving up some running yards, but LSU's got guys. They've got talent. This was the most talented team Ole Miss played all year. And for Ole Miss, they're going to score a lot of points to win this game. Now, they do play A&M this Saturday. They're not going to score a lot of points to beat A&M. We're going to get to A&M in a minute, in a few minutes here. But with that said, they're going to start scoring a whole lot more points in some of these games. You know, when Coach Max Howell was on last week, he saw the team maybe an 8-9-1 team. I'm actually seeing that now moving forward with Ole Miss. They could maybe get 10, but they're going to start scoring a whole lot more points, and they're going to get better production from Jackson Dart. Yeah, you said 284 is a lot of yardage, but there's a lot of times he got pressure on him, bad passes. I mean, he does force the ball at times, so they're going to have to clean some of that up moving forward for LSU. Vanderbilt and Missouri played. That was a 3 o'clock game over on SC Network. I'm sure, unless you're a fan of those two, you probably weren't watching this game. I watched it. I went back and rewatched it last night. Missouri wins 17-14. Kind of worried about Missouri here in this one. They jumped up 17-0 in the first half. Like, okay, Missouri's doing their deal. Vanderbilt struggling on offense. This is going to be an easy day at the office for Missouri. But we should know better about these Missouri football games. But first, before that, Luther Burden, top recruit they have. A lot of people are surprised he stayed in state, went to Missouri, but he had 2 touchdowns in the first half to help build that 17-0 lead. A 35-yard touchdown reception from Cook, and also had a 10-yard run in the second quarter. So big plays, get the ball in this guy's hand, good things will happen for him, Missouri. But Vanderbilt got back in. Now, there was a quarterback switch. A.J. Swan got put on the bench. They were just struggling offensively. They put Mike Wright in, which what Mike Wright does bring is he's not as a pure – obviously, he's not the pure passer that A.J. Swan is. And Swan did throw his first interception of the season, too, in the end zone. Bad pass, too. He just lobbed it. I mean, in traffic. I mean, it just was not going to work out for you on there. But Mike Wright does bring that running ability, trying to get more offense. So, in the third quarter – they did get back in it. C.J. Taylor had a 3-yard fumble return for a touchdown. That was 17-7, but it's kind of stayed like that for a while. Then with under 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter, Marion Carter caught an 80-yard touchdown catch from Mike Wright to get them 17-14. Vanderbilt had an opportunity. They're at their own 44-yard line. About a minute 18 left, a 4th and 1. They couldn't get it. Ray Davis was shut down. So this was big because, talking with Matt last week when we previewed this game, we talked about how more than likely this was the only opportunity that one of these teams could win an SEC game, especially on the Vanderbilt side of things. And Vanderbilt lost this one to go to 4. Of course, they have not beaten an SEC team since 2019. I think that was in October when they beat Missouri there. I think their streak's going to go through this season, unfortunately, for Vanderbilt. And as I've said, and it's hard to people, you say this, well, they still suck. They're not good. No, Vanderbilt's not good. They're still not good. But if you do watch them play, they've got better players. Clark Lee is bringing in some better players for Vanderbilt. They're just not there yet where they can compete with teams. And this was a big game for them. They needed to win this one, and they couldn't do it. And it was a big game because I really believe Eli Drinkwitz had lost this one. The seat would really be getting hot on him. I came into the year thinking 2 coaches would probably not make it through the year. Brian Harsin and Eli Drinkwitz. We'll see what they can do now. I believe they have South Carolina coming up this coming week. I'm looking at my notes here. Yeah, South Carolina playing Missouri this Saturday. So we'll see. South Carolina's on a good roll. We're going to get them second. But for Missouri, big to get this win because I may not get another SEC win throughout the rest of the season. Now we're jumping into the primetime games. Like I said, we only had 5 games on Saturday. Mississippi State, Alabama. Alabama wins 30-6 in this one to rebound from their loss against Tennessee to go 7-1, 4-1 a year. Mississippi State's now dropped 2 in a row. They are now 5-3. They are 2-3 in the conference. The other loss in conference was against the LSU first 4 weeks of the season. Alabama jumps up to a 21-0 lead with 8:19 left in the second. They had 3 Will Reichert field goals after that to get 30 points, and like I said, to win 30-6. Alabama actually was outgained in this game. Mississippi State outgained them 293-290. Mississippi State scores their first touchdown at Bryant-Denny Stadium since 2014. Dak Prescott touchdown. It was in the game. It was 30-0. It was garbage time, but that little streak does end for Mississippi State. Alabama only had 29 rushing yards this one. They could not get the running game going. Now, Mississippi State's got a solid defense. They're not a great defense, but they are they're a solid defense. And actually, before I continue with this, it's good to have your phone on you. So I was talking about the 2:30 CBS game on November 5th. Tennessee and Georgia will be the 2:30 CBS game. That just happened. So some breaking news here on the podcast as we record. And we are live on YouTube and on my Twitter account too as well right now. So, but anyways, we do get some breaking news there. But anyways, Alabama, like I said, they were outgained 293-290. They could not run the ball in this one. Only 29 rushing yards. Bryce Young had a solid game. 21 of 35, 249, 2 touchdowns. But you know what? Mississippi State missed some opportunities early in this game. They actually did move the ball a little bit. So you look at it, it was Alabama did not score the start. And then when Mississippi State, second drive of the game, They got a 4th and 3. They did not get it. You kick a field goal here. It's 0-0 at the time. Yes, you need touchdowns to beat Alabama. Field goals aren't going to do it. But that's early in the game. And if you can get an early lead on Alabama, just go up 3-0 here. And I know Mike Leach, and they've had issues with the kicking game. So maybe at this thing, he's like, I ain't kicking, ain't no way I'm kicking a field goal. But if you do kick the field goal there and you make it, you're up 3-0. But what happens next? Alabama goes down, scores a touchdown. And this State goes for it again. There was a 4th and 1. There was a missed field goal on the next drive where Alabama up 7-0. Then Alabama takes that. They go down and they go up 14-0. So maybe Mike Leach was right early on, not going for the field goal. I'm just saying it's early. You go up 3-0. You got some momentum on your side if you do that. So then Mississippi State goes for it on another 4th and 1 on their own 29. Now, this is where you need to punt the ball. And I know Mike Leach, air raid, offense, but you need to not put your team in a bad situation. And you failed on a 4th and short already in the game. Punt the ball. But look, Alabama still may score. They still may go up 21-0. But put your defense, give your defense a chance, put your offense in a better situation. Because now you put your defense in a better situation against Bryce Young, against Alabama. Of course, they don't get it. Alabama goes up 21 when Young connects with Trayshawn Holden, 6 yards. That's when they go at 21-0 with 8:19 left in the second. Will Rogers threw 60 passes in this one, 30 of 60 for 231, no touchdowns. On the defensive side of the ball, Alabama's linebacker Henry Toto with 13 tackles led the way. Will Anderson had another good game, 1 sack, 1.5 tackles for loss, and he did have a quarterback hurry in there as well. But Bryce Young said after the game, we need to have some consistency. And also on this one, Mike Leach was talking about how his players seem to be scared. If you put Alabama on the front of somebody's jersey or whatever, they're just going to scare them on that one. We got some more breaking news as I'm recording a podcast right now. We're like they were live. This is kind of cool. Get some news to deliver. When we get done, we have the TV times for November 5th. They just dropped right now. So when we get that, I will read it and I'll let you guys know who's going to be playing at what time on November 5th. And then finally, the last game of the day, Texas A&M falls to South Carolina 30-24. That now puts A&M at 3-4 on the year. They're 1-3 in SEC play. That puts South Carolina has now won 4 games in a row. They're 5-2, 2-2 in the conference. South Carolina jumped out 17 early. It was Beamer ball. Beamer ball is back. Xavier Leggett had a 100-yard opening kickoff return for a touchdown. They did a good job. They forced some more turnovers for A&M. They turned a fumble interception into 10 points for them as well. Like I said, 4 straight wins for South Carolina. Shane Beamer's doing a great job. They have belief there at South Carolina. It's just a good lot of energy around the program. They're making plays other than the offense. And I said going into this game what was intriguing, I thought A&M would win this game because I thought at some point Spencer Rattler would make a mistake. That would be a huge mistake. This would be a close game going into the fourth quarter, and that A&M would take advantage of that mistake or mistakes and win. Because for South Carolina, they have had at least 2 turnovers last several weeks of their games. This one they did not. They took care of the ball, and that was the key, I think, also for South Carolina to come out on top. Marshawn Lloyd had 92 yards, 2 second-half touchdowns. Like Spencer Rattler, he was 12 of 25, 168. But he took care of the ball. He did not make the mistakes. You kind of expect that of him. He just kind of does it. But, this goes back to Texas A&M. This team was ranked 6th to start the season. They were supposed to be the team that competed against Alabama for the SEC West. They fall flat. This is year 5, Jimbo Fisher. And he has a worse record through this point in his A&M career than Kevin Sumlin did. And if you listened to me before the season, I'm not high on Jimbo Fisher. I don't think he's that guy. You take Jameis Winston and a super talented, just roster that was super talented in Florida State away from him. He's an 8-4 coach. That is what he is. But A&M stuck with him because the buyout, I believe, was around $86 million. He had to play both quarterbacks. This one, Haynes King got hurt with a shoulder injury. Really weird. He didn't fall on anything. He just threw a pass, and his shoulder was hurt. So then true freshman Connor Wegman had to come in. Both quarterbacks faced constant pressure throughout the game. It was a bad situation for Wegman to come in. I actually think he actually played pretty well for the circumstances he got thrown into, threw 91 yards in the fourth quarter when he got put in. 2 Hail Mary attempts. They tried it in. So they did get an onside kick. So while I say all this, that A&M struggled, they lost 30-24. They had somewhat an opportunity to maybe pull off a miracle there at the end, but It's still bad here. And then for A&M, they have Ole Miss this week. I don't think Ole Miss struggles on defense, but I don't think A&M is going to be able to put up enough points to really make that a contest. And then, like I said, South Carolina's got Missouri coming up. So we talked about LSU beating Ole Miss. And I guess now, okay, first off, I told you I watched the Clemson and Syracuse game. That was the game I watched Saturday at 11 o'clock, too, while I was watching Tennessee UT Martin. How is it now? Okay, if you're just like a casual college football fan, you don't watch every week. You're not dialed into all the traditions that some of these teams have. Okay, that's fine. But if you cover this sport for a living, and then when every time it happens all the time. Okay, so Clemson is a big game. Two undefeated teams are playing each other. Clemson wins, and the Clemson fans come on the field. And then if you get on Twitter, Facebook, any form of social media, you start seeing all these people say, why are they rushing the field? Why are they rushing the field? They were favored to win, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, do you guys not? And like I said, the casual fans, okay, I get it, questioning it, what's going on. But people that cover this sport, and you see TV people like to come in and say, wow, they're storming the field, a little overdone, ain't it? Clemson does that after every home game. It's called the meet at the Paul. They meet at the Paul. That's what they do. That's their tradition. How are you covering the sport for a living, especially if you've been doing it for a long time and you just make a big deal of it? I know Clemson's not on national – well, everybody's on national TV. I know Clemson doesn't in these big national highlight games a lot because they're in the ACC. ACC's a weaker conference. I get that. But come on, you got to do better. I said that to kind of get into this thing. LSU fans came onto the field after they beat number 7 Ole Miss, a game LSU was actually favored to win, by the way. I believe the line on Saturday got like 1.5. But I know when me and Matt talked last week picking this game, it was at 3 at the time. But LSU, okay, I get it. It's a big win. You're happy, you're excited. But come on now. You were favored to win the game. We're doing this gets overdone with the rushing field. I got the Tennessee part of it. You'd lost to Alabama 15 years in a row. That was a huge, huge, huge victory for the Volunteers. But this, we need to dial it back a little bit on how, when should we and when we should not rush the field. But LSU fined $250,000. Yeah, so for rushing the field, I'm just saying, let's cool it. Let's cool it. And we do this in basketball too, rush the court. Let's just cool it down a little bit. Looking at the current standings in the SEC, just a little update on that. Georgia did not play. They remain at top at 4-0, 7-0 overall. Tennessee is 3-0, 7-0. That's the top 2 teams. And, of course, they'll be playing in a couple of weeks. South Carolina and Kentucky are now tied at 2-2 for the 3 spot. Of course, South Carolina's at 3 because they beat Kentucky a few weeks ago. Florida, Missouri are both 1-3, and then Vanderbilt sits at the bottom at 0-4. Alabama and LSU are both tied at 4-1, so that'll get decided in a few weeks when they play because both those teams are off this week. Ole Miss is 3-1. The Mississippi State, they are 2-3. Then you have 3 teams at the bottom: Auburn, A&M, and Arkansas at 1-3. But Auburn and Arkansas play this Saturday to kind of fix that tie. Then the AP and coaches poll. In the AP poll, Georgia stays at number 1, 31 votes there. Tennessee stays at number 3, 13. Alabama stays at number 6. Teams that did move, Ole Miss dropped 8 spots. They were at 7. They are now at 15. LSU jumps into the rankings. They were not ranked last week. They are now 18. It's a big jump for them. Kentucky stays where they're at. They were off this week. They stay at 19. South Carolina was not ranked coming in. They are now 25 on the rankings in AP poll. Receiving votes in AP poll, Mississippi State received 10. Arkansas received 1. In the coaches poll, Georgia stays at number 1. Tennessee jumps up to 3. They were number 4 in the coaches poll last week. Alabama stays at 6. Ole Miss drops to 12. They dropped 5 spots. They were 7 in that one as well last week. Kentucky, without playing, goes up a spot. They go from 18 to 17. LSU is at 20. They weren't ranked in coaches poll last week. In South Carolina, it goes to 25 like in AP, and they were not ranked last week either. And same deal there in the coaches poll. Teams that receive votes from Mississippi State and Arkansas. Mississippi State is out of the rankings in both of them. They were 24 in both the AP and coaches poll last week. And I told you guys we got some news. As I'm sitting here recording on the TV schedule for November 5th in the SEC. So the 11 o'clock game will be Florida at Texas A&M. That will be televised by ESPN. Kentucky at Missouri will be the SEC Network game at 11. Of course, the 2:30 game will be Tennessee at Georgia. Liberty at Arkansas, they will be a 3 o'clock central kick on the SEC Network. Like I said, Alabama LSU will kick off at 6 o'clock over on ESPN. On the SEC Network at 6:30, you'll have South Carolina at Vanderbilt, and then Auburn at Mississippi State will be on ESPN2 at 6:30. So that will be your schedule for week, November 5th. This will be week 10 in the SEC. So that's crazy. We're getting so close towards the end of the season. But anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this edition of Talking SEC. Make sure to tune in on Tuesday. You heard my thoughts on everything happening in week 8. We're going to get an expert. We're going to get Coach Max Howell. We'll ask him all the important questions about SEC week 8, what he saw, what stuck out to him. Some X's and O's talk with Coach Max Howell. I always appreciate him coming on. Of course, on Wednesday, I have Mystery Wednesday. I have a guest on Wednesday. I was trying for 2. I got 1 locked in. The second one, we're still trying to figure some stuff out. So we'll see. May have 2 guests on Wednesday's podcast. Then on Thursday, me and Matt Lowe will preview the upcoming games for week 9 in the SEC. And, of course, check out the Phillip Jordan podcast. We're dropping one of them this week, probably either Wednesday or Thursday. The Wiregrass High School Football Report. If you're a fan of high school football in the Wiregrass, that's the Southeast Alabama area. Check that out. The new episode's up with Cottonwood head coach Dustin Harrison after their big win this past week, clinching their first playoff berth since 2014. You can check out all my written work over at Last Word on College Football. Should have something up this week on Auburn this coming week. And also, you can check out Nothing Was Football on 96.9 The Legend, where I'm in-studio host and producer. We'll be playing this Thursday, the season finale against Jeff Davis. Big game for the Wolves. If they win, that puts them in good standing for the playoffs. And depending on some results on Friday night, they'll be getting the playoffs and hope and go to 7-3 on the year. Remember, you can follow me on social media at PJordanSEC. The podcast is available on all your favorite podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, wherever you get your podcast. If you're on Apple Podcasts, please follow, rate, and review. Leave a review. I will read it on a future edition of the show, and that really helps out the show if you leave a review, especially if you subscribe. Look, this is Talking SEC Reborn. It's a brand new feed, so it's really helpful if you would go in there and leave a review, leave a rating. I will read those on here. Of course, you can check out the show over on YouTube. There's 2 places on YouTube you can check out Talking SEC. You can check it out over on my personal YouTube account, Phillip Jordan. It's very easy to find. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell, and for all notifications. Also, same thing on the Talking SEC YouTube channel. That's completely this show, only Talking SEC content. So please go and do that. Both situations, if you leave a comment on a Talking SEC episode, I will read that on a future edition as well. You can always email me at sports.philipjordan@gmail.com. Everybody has a great rest of your Monday. And I'll talk to you tomorrow when I'm joined by Coach Max Howell. You've been listening to Talking SEC.
Thank you for listening to Talkin' SEC. Follow Phillip on social media at PJordanSEC and the show at Talkin' SEC Pod. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcast or wherever you get your podcasts. We'll see you next time when we're talking SEC.
You can check out Talking SEC on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you're on Apple Podcasts, please follow, rate, and review. It means a lot to the show if you do that. If you leave a review, I will read it on a future edition of the show. You can also watch the show over on YouTube, either at the Phillip Jordan YouTube channel. Just hit the subscribe button, hit the bell for all notifications, and leave a comment on a video. I'll read that on a future edition of the show. Also over on the Talking SEC YouTube channel as well. You can always email me at sports.philipjordan@gmail.com or hit me up on social media at PJordanSEC.